I interviewed Amy Hagerup a few months ago on Triumph Talks about her memoir, From Worry to Wonder: Seeing God's Goodness in Life's Rearview Mirror. She is a former missionary who experienced a myriad of adversity and challenges, as well as miracles and blessings. Her book is inspiring and life changing, full of captivating stories. After publishing her book in ebook and paperback formats, Amy took on the task of learning how to narrate and edit her book so she could publish it as an audiobook. In this episode, Amy has agreed to share what she learned as she became her own audiobook narrator. Amy, thank you for coming back to Triumph Talks. It's great to see you again.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
I am so glad that you decided to turn your book into an audiobook because, for one, it's a great book that I think many people need to read or listen to. It really does give you hope in a world that is losing hope. So, thank you for that. I'm also grateful that you did it because I want to learn from you. So, I'm really looking forward to all you have to teach.
You've been a great support for me in this endeavor. I'm so glad to have had you as a cheerleader, and I'm happy to share with you some of the things I've learned.
For anybody who doesn't know anything about you or your book, can you just give us a quick synopsis?
I want it to be an encouragement to the people who read it because we all go through trials. We're all currently going through trials of different levels. But God, for those of us who love him and are called according to his purpose, he promises that he will bring it to good. So that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. Well, that and you have lived a very adventurous life and had a lot of experiences that I think are a great testimony to the good that God can make out of hardships. My next question now is really to dive into the reasons why you decided to turn it into an audiobook.
The reason that I wanted to publish it as audio is I really wanted to reach more people because there's a whole segment of the population who consume their books through audio, on runs or in the car. And I really wanted to reach more people with the message of how God tells us, even in Psalm 78:4, to tell the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord. So I want to reach more people with that message. And also, another reason was I wanted it to be in my own voice as I'm telling the things that have happened. And I can accomplish that by creating an audiobook.
It sure is true that people are listening to books in audio form more and more. In fact, it would be interesting to look at the statistics and see, um, compared to reading books or the digital version, how many are being read or listened to. And I suspect it's on the trajectory upwards more and
Mhm.
more. And so it really is important for authors. I know we're going to have a lot of authors watching this show that are saying, "Ew, I really feel like I need my book in audio formats." With that being said, there's actually many platforms and ways to put your audiobook out there. So my next question for you is, what were the different options that you considered and what did you settle on?
Well, first of all, I have to agree with you that it really is good for authors to get their book done in audio. And the options that really you have to choose from that I was looking at was, first of all, you can hire a narrator and an editor. Or
Mhm.
second of all, you can narrate it yourself and then hire an editor to edit it and prepare it
Oh,
for publication.
yeah.
And the third one is you can narrate it yourself and edit it yourself. So those were the options that I feel were in front of me that are in front of your audience.
And you chose
And I chose the latter,
the
to
latter,
narrate it and edit it myself.
which is the bold decision, especially because you'd never done it before. And it actually makes you the best person to talk to because you did it successfully, going from no knowledge to having your audiobook accepted by ACX as one of the platforms I know. And I think that you said they approved it your first time in. So that's a huge accomplishment. So I definitely want to hear how you were able to make those huge leaps.
I'm eager to share that, and I do have some inside tips for you. But I will say that one of the some of the reasons that I chose to narrate it myself was, first of all, of course, to save money, but also because as a memoir, I felt it was really important for it to be in my own voice. I know there's some great narrators out there and that might work for your situation, but as a memoir, it's really good if it's in your voice. I have experienced these things. I relive them as I'm narrating it. And so that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to go with this. And also, I wanted to be in full control of the outcome of how it turned out. And I've done some editing of videos. So I do have
Mhm.
a little bit of editing experience, but I'm going to give you a tip in our when we talk about the editing of it that can really help someone who doesn't have that experience still be able to narrate and edit their own audiobook.
I have a couple of clips from your audiobook that we can share. And so I want to show one right now because I think it does a good job of helping the viewers to get an idea of how an audiobook can sound when you read your own story. It definitely makes a difference. I was actually just listening to a podcast this morning, ironically, and the host was talking about how he loves audiobooks. That's how he almost consumes all his books that way, and that he greatly prefers when the actual author reads it because it's just more real. So let's just take a minute and listen to one of your clips.
All righty.
Mark was preparing for an exceptionally long trek to Yaley, 3 days one way, which meant 7 days away. I sat on the bed with my legs drawn up under my chin as I observed him roll up his sleeping bag. Feeling the need to be supportive, I wiped my tears and asked how I could help him prepare. Stopping mid-roll, he moved toward where I was sitting. His eyes met mine, and I could see compassion in them. "Amy, why don't you and Benji come with me?" That was the craziest thing I had ever heard. How can I take an 8-month-old baby on a 7-day trek riding mules and walking for miles through mountains? But my heart overruled my mind's tendency to pre-plan everything, and I blurted out, "Let's do it," before practicality won over my brain.
Knowing you, as I've gotten to know you in these interviews, that is your personality. You are not a narrator who is trying to dramatize someone else's story, but you really are that kind of enthusiastic, for one thing.
It is a perk to narrating it yourself, and you can really get into the emotion of it and how you were feeling and communicate that to your listener.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing I was thinking about, especially as I was just listening to that clip, is that during the course of listening to your book or reading your book, people are really connecting to you as a person, like a friend. Your book is written that way. It's very personable. Obviously, you can hear that. And I think it helps to build that connection that you've already written into your book to be able to add your personality, your voice, your enthusiasm. I think it really does help you achieve that aspect of your storytelling. And so I think that's really great.
Yes, I agree. And we've talked about the importance of it with memoir, but even with
Mhm.
nonfiction or fiction, to when the author is able to narrate it themselves, there is an element of that this came from your heart, or this information you're communicating is from your experience. It's just a way that you can elevate what your message is to your audience.
I love it. That is a great word. And who wouldn't want to do that especially with nonfiction? You think about the value of the life you've lived, then the value of recording it and sharing it with others, and then to just take it to another level and elevate it. We should all want that. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of actually making an audiobook. Could you share what equipment you used and what equipment you need?
Yes, of course, everyone watching this is going to have a computer. That would be a basic need that we have. You also want to have a dynamic mic. And this is as opposed to a condenser mic. You can look up all the details on that, but in all my learning, you can learn a lot on YouTube. I learned that we needed a good dynamic mic. Mine was about $100, I think. And then you're also going to need some good headphones, because when you're doing your editing and you're listening back to what you've recorded, you really want to be able to hear every sound, every,
That's a really
pop.
good point. Yeah.
Yes, every
Don't get
pop.
cheap headphones because they're not gonna give you the quality that will let you really judge how good or not good your recording is.
Exactly. So that's going to help you. The ones I bought were around $60, I think. And then you want a quiet space for that you can record in, and that you can leave that. If you set up your own space for recording, you want to be able to leave that for the duration till you've got your book approved before you take it down. And
Mm,
then also you're going to need a software for doing the actual recording. I used Audacity, which is a free software download that you can use. You can just Google that and you can watch videos on how to do it. And it's very user friendly. And that's what I used.
that's amazing. I do want to put a little exclamation mark on the, difference between the condenser and the dynamic mic.
Okay.
I learned that the hard way. I had no idea. I didn't do my research. When I started this podcast, I bought a really nice condenser mic and it had great reviews, but oh, my sound was terrible. If you go back and watch some of my first, like way back at the beginning, this is a dynamic mic and it made a huge difference. So that is something that those who are watching, write that down. Don't forget, because the condenser mic just picks up everything, and the dynamic is just your voice. It's so much better for speaking type of recordings. So
I actually bought a condenser mic first.
you
And
did
then
too?
as I can, but I hadn't used it yet. And as I was still doing my learning, and one of my trainers said, don't use a condenser mic, use a dynamic mic. And so I was able to send that one back and get a dynamic mic,
Yeah, newbies will not know. If you have nothing, if you've
right?
never experienced buying a microphone, you might not realize that there's a big difference. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I speak from personal experience. So now that we have an idea of kind of what the equipment is that you use, I wonder if you might share some tips and things that you learned for the recording process that made it go better, that would help people who are watching to learn from you.
My first tip would be to listen to a lot of audiobooks, especially in your genre. As you listen to books, you'll hear how other people record. I listened to one where it was in 3-word segments. The person recording did like 3 words at a time, and that was not the way I wanted to record. But you'll just learn different ways of dramatizing, showing emotion. It will help you as you narrate your own, especially if it's memoir or fiction that has emotion in it, that you'll be able to do that.
I have another audio clip that I think does a really good job of demonstrating what you just talked about, because this was an emotional part of your life story, and we can feel it as we listen to you. So I'm going to play another clip from your book.
No Ghanaian judge is going to give you a Burkinabe child. He paused, as if to let that sink into our brains. I am dropping your case. My husband and I were silent on the bumpy ride home, the fresh wounds from his resignation still bleeding inside us. We knew our town had no pool of lawyers from whom to choose. Hiring another lawyer would mean multiple trips to Accra, an 11-hour drive one way. After reading bedtime stories to the little girls, I picked up Aishetu to put her into her crib. I knelt beside her bed each night to pray with her. Feeling defeated, I could hardly get the words out. "Dear Jesus," I stammered. Then I heard this sweet little toddler say, "Ear Jesus." I realized Aishetu must have thought I was telling her to pray by repeating after me, which I sometimes did. So I adapted the prayer of my bruised heart to come from her innocent perspective instead. With the appropriate pauses, Aishetu prayed after me. Please give me to this family. I need a family, and I want to learn about you. You can do anything. I love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Wow. Beautiful little girl. And, my heart just goes out to you in that moment to think of not being able to adopt her and having the whole government against it. And then you are able to dramatize this sweet little girl's vernacular for praying. I think that's a great clip, though, to just show how you have elements of your story that are conveyed so powerfully in the audio form. And so,
It's really important as we do that because we want to draw the reader in to what's going on in our
mm.
hearts and our lives.
What are some other things that you needed to do to make sure that it was a good sound? Are there any additional tips along those lines?
Yes, I mentioned setting up your own recording space. And one of the things that you want to do is really get as quiet a room as possible. I had one in the basement with a very tiny window. You don't want it to be near a window that's going to be near road sound. You don't want a dog barking. Use lots of blankets, pillows, towels to just absorb all the uh, extra sound that could come while you're recording because you want it to be a recording of your voice. And I've seen different things on YouTube's as I was learning how to do this. One young man talked about putting an umbrella over you and then a blanket over the umbrella so that it's
Oh,
absorbing that sound. I didn't
interesting.
see, I didn't see a picture of it, but you can kind of imagine it.
Yeah.
I also read of one man who does it in a closet because the clothing will absorb the sound. So there's different avenues for you. You can also rent space in a sound studio, but the disadvantage of that is you want to do your book because you're going to pay by the day or pay by the hour. So you want to do it quickly so that you're not paying too much. But when you do it at home, when you have your own room, you can spread it out.
And by doing it quickly, you may get a tired voice, and the quality of the sound, I'm sure, could drop after 2, 3, 4 hours as you're trying to push through, versus
Right.
being able to just keep coming back to your studio. I love the pictures that you're sharing with us. It makes me think how don't worry about what's going on visually around you because they're only gonna hear it, and you can make a mess, but just let it be there as long as you need it to while you do your recording.
Right. Yes, that's what I did. A couple of other just tips for you is if possible, stand up while you record. That was one tip that I heard from a professional. I was not able to stand up when I recorded, but that was one thing that he felt was very important to do. If possible, read from a device. Don't
Mm.
read from a book because you don't want to hear the sounds of the page turning. That will help that you're not getting extra sounds and you're
Oh,
just able
yeah.
to
That
keep,
makes a lot of sense. And
yes,
if you
keep
have it
scrolling up.
if you're really capturing the sounds of your voice, you're probably definitely gonna be capturing the sound of that page turning, and, um,
Right.
yeah,
You want to,
I question if that would even get approved by the platforms that you're submitting it to.
exactly. It probably would be picked
Yeah.
up. You
I
want to
mean, it
take,
might be like, "Oh, this is like sitting on a bedside, someone reading to me," but I don't think those sounds are actually going to be allowed, with the
right,
level of
right.
quality they're looking for.
Yes. And you alluded to a little bit earlier in one of your comments, you want to take breaks. I have had a water bottle by me. You want to stop and take breaks. Another thing, as far as sound, be sure you turn off the air conditioner or the heater. You might even want to put a note on your computer to remind you to do that because there was a time when I had recorded a bit and I had forgotten to turn off the air
Oh,
conditioner.
wow, I had to redo it. And
Yeah,
again, those are the kind of things that a condenser mic will really pick up. A dynamic mic, you might get away with, but the condenser mic just grabs all of those every ambient sound around you. But that is a really good tip just to turn it all off while you're in there and,
right,
hopefully
right.
it's not in the middle of the summer at 110 degrees in Arizona, and if so, you might wanna just rethink when you record your book. That might be a a tip to add.
One thing I like to do before I got started was just practice a passage short passage, just getting in the mood, just getting into that mindset of what was happening in that story. And you want to, each chapter needs to be its own file. Now, as I say that, let me just tell you of an important tip is to learn the basics for the standard audio books of going to be accepted. You can get a list from ACX of your book has to be like this, it has to follow these guidelines. There'll be a lot of technical things. But one thing that really helped me, and this is my best tip for you, is I found a course called Audiobooks Made Easy by Derek Dopker. And if you can find it, audiobooksmadeeasy.com. That's the landing page. And really, Derek just stepped me through everything I needed to do, every level that needed to be set for the noise level.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
after you do all your recording and you do some editing, which I'm going to give you a tip on that, then there's certain effects you have to add. And so Derek
Oh,
taught me all of that. It was very helpful. And one of the things that I didn't realize until the end was in the bar where you can choose different things you're doing as you're editing, there is an ACX check. So you can
oh,
highlight your whole file, what you've recorded, of what you've edited, and you've added the effects, and then do an ACX check. Now, that's not going to tell you everything, but it will tell you if your noise level is acceptable. It'll be a pass or fail when you do that check.
oh, that's great to know, and also to know about that course because you can spend hundreds of hours listening to tutorials and reading blogs and picking up all these tips. But from what you've told me, this was a course that just gave you everything you needed to know. And then you were actually able to connect with the creator of the course. I think you shared with me at one point that you were able to send him samples of your work and he could advise you on what you were doing right or wrong.
That's right. At the very beginning, when you're first set up all the things he tells you to set up,
Mhm.
you can send him a little clip and he will tell you if it's right. Go ahead, you're ready to go, you're good to go. Or no, you need to adjust this, or it's not loud enough, or whatever. So it was kind of like having a coach help
Yeah.
me with that. And
Truly, and not just a coach that you're just listening to and learning from, who's actually personally helping you at least to know that you're ready or not ready. That is so important because if you don't know and you went ahead and record your whole book, and then you find out that some tweak needed to be made first, you've got to do it all over again. And so
right.
it's well worth the investment. I think you were telling me that you actually have a coupon or know of a
Yes,
coupon.
I have a coupon to share with your audience. If you want that course, audiobooksmadeeasy.com, the coupon is 20 off, 20, and then the word off, and the promo bar for 20% off. So that's something that I just want, if you'd like to go forward with this, there's a coupon for you.
Thank you. That's huge. I mean, just to know that he's someone that will help you to make sure you're on the right path. That's just almost invaluable. Just and I say that because our books and our stories are invaluable. And so to make sure that we actually get them out there in all of the ways that we're striving to do is just priceless. So, but it's nice to have a coupon for something that's priceless.
Yes, yes, definitely. And then another thing just for you to know of that can help with the editing, this is pretty key, and I think Derek does talk about this in his course, is as you're going along recording and you make a mistake, you can clap or snap. Some people snap, but I clap and it will make a red bar. In fact, I have a little clip to show you of how this works. As you get ready to listen to it, it starts out where it's at Christmas time. I'm a child and I start talking about getting my stocking and I just mispronounce stocking. And so then I just clap and then go forward, just redo that. Then when I'm editing it, I'll just go see where my red lines are. It's very quick to do where those obvious things I need to edit out are, and can go and edit it out and then it's corrected. So let's listen to that clip and listen and watch for that red line.
Yes, we'll watch for that. Wonderful.
I grabbed my stuffed stock. I grabbed my stuffed stocking perched on the top of.
So you can see how easy that was to just go and see where it was and change that, edit that out.
That is a phenomenal tip right there. And yeah, wow. How I like that you're able to just put the clap in, continue on. Probably without that advice, people might think, "Oh, I gotta go back. I gotta take this out and then start over." And I can only imagine it would take 10 times as long to edit that way versus just knowing that you got to look for these tall lines and that there's something there to fix. So that is great.
Absolutely. I totally would have done
Yeah.
that, would have just, "Okay, I've gotta
Yeah.
stop, gotta, erase that out, then start again." No, but just keep your momentum going all the way through the end of the chapter, and it really helps a lot.
Yeah.
Another neat thing that I learned with editing myself is as I'm listening to what I've recorded and I come to a word where maybe I swallow the last consonant. My husband's name is Mark. So maybe I come to a place where I say Mark and I don't really hear that K at the end.
Mhm.
I can go to another word that ends in K or even my husband's name again and copy that little k sound and go and paste it onto the mark. And that is, and then when I listen to it, it's mark. And it's just as,
Ah, wow. That
and
is
I never saw that tip or heard that tip on a YouTube video in or anywhere. So this is really a good tip that's not real common. At least it's not taught as a
and
real common
is that
thing.
you got that from the course? Is that where you learned it?
No, no, I just
Oh,
figured that out
straight from
myself.
you. You
Yeah.
figured it out. Oh,
I
wow.
think it was probably because I've done some video editing, but anyway, I was glad
Oh.
to figure that out because it meant I didn't have to go and re-record that to get
Oh
that
gosh,
cut
yeah.
in there.
And you might not even realize that yeah, you'd have to be coming back later to re-record because as you went along, you didn't hear that it was missing until you go back to replay it, and so but to pick up one sound, one syllable, that's amazing that you can drill down to something as minute as a K.
Right.
That's
And
amazing.
enunciating is so important as you record.
I can hear in your recording that you have done a very good job of enunciation and really articulating so that as we listen, there's no loss of words because that really does happen. Sometimes you might be listening to something and or I even see that when I watch TV or movies at home. A lot of times I'll use closed caption just if the person speaking isn't very articulate that way. I just say, I'm really not sure what he's saying, and so
Yes.
I'll have to use closed caption. So it really is important. I know sometimes, especially for those who might be reading their own book, you're not a trained narrator. And people who are trained, I'm sure in the course of learning to be a narrator, they learn to be very clear in their
Mhm,
pronunciation.
mhm.
But you might read it and say, "Oh, well, it's me. This is my personality. I'm gonna read it with my personality," and that's good, but you still need to articulate because your personality might cause your listeners to not know what you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm thankful for the ability that the listener has to speed something up because I think that that would help it be sound more natural because I'm trying so much to enunciate well, but I
Mhm.
would like to just speed it up a little bit and then you can still understand.
Ooh, there's another great tip. That one's for the listener. So, yeah, that's great. I just love that this is something you've done and you have so much to teach. I do have a question, and that is what platform did you just put it on the Amazon platform, or what platforms did you select once you finished your recording?
I started out with ACX. ACX is for Audible on Amazon, but it is actually different than Amazon. Like I can't go and check my Audible account or what how many I've sold without going into ACX.
Mm.
But anyway, ACX is a great one to start with. You're going to learn all the ins and outs of what you need to do. There's another platform called Findaway Voices, And I also uploaded there. I did my ACX first, got it onto Audible first, and then I went through the Findaway Voices hoops and got it onto other sites as well. But you can do both. If you do Findaway Voices first, you can actually choose Audible as one of the sites. But I did Audible first, so I didn't add that to Findaway
Oh,
Voices.
interesting.
I
So you
kept that
could
one out.
so you could hit them all with Find a Way Voice, but I know that, um, Amazon is really the primary distributor of books and audiobooks. I mean, so
Right,
I know my philosophy has always been to work with them as much as possible because there are advantages and that's where you're going to get the most sales, but then going wide just allows your book to be found in other places, like you said, like libraries and things
right.
like that. I actually have had my first experience setting up an audiobook for a client. Um, Sidwan Sean is a Cambodian genocide survivor, and he wrote his memoir, which is extremely important. And in fact, I interviewed him and the narrator who recorded his story. It's the first topic on this subject in my YouTube channel. And so I'm the one that just set that all up for him. And because he already had his book as a paperback and a Kindle on Amazon, when I went into the ACX, it was able to quickly find it and pull everything in. So I was actually kind of amazed at how streamlined the process was for putting, his book there. Just pulled it right over. So that was really nice. And then you mentioned earlier that every chapter is a different file. And so I learned that in the course of uploading the book for him because I took part in that. And what I found was as I uploaded them all, I actually had 2 of the chapters, and they were just random, that didn't meet the standard. The narrator, Garen Patrick, was able to quickly make the tweak, whatever it was. Of course, I don't know because I hadn't learned how to do it and upload them. But I think that really speaks to um, how important it is to know what you're doing, and because sometimes they can be rejected, and they'll reject one file and accept the rest. But of course, you can't publish your book until you have them all there, and you need to have a file for every section of the book, even things like, I believe, like dedication. Anything that's in the book needs to be accounted for, as well as acknowledgments, which is something separate, right? You needed to record certain. Do you want to speak to that? Do you recall the additional recordings you needed?
Well, you need to have a sample of your book, and it
Okay.
needs to be 5 minutes or less. There's actually a place where you will upload the sample.
Mm.
They like for it to be the beginning of the book because, in fact, they say even if you upload a different sample, they'll sometimes just do the first 5 minutes of the book, even though you've
Oh,
uploaded another sample.
yeah.
But, but you are actually in charge of what other things like acknowledgments or forward dedication. You're in charge of if you want those in there, but they do have to be a separate file that you load in.
Okay. Good.
So it,
Good.
it
Good to
does.
know.
And one thing that I would encourage you to do if you're going to narrate your own book is go ahead and set up an ACX account. I wish I had done that to start with. I think that would have taken some of the fear out for me because I was so
Mm.
afraid that I was going to do all this work and then it would be rejected. But I think if I had made my ACX account and after I did one chapter or my preface, and then I went through all the steps that Derek taught me of editing it and then doing the effects and then uploading it to ACX. It's not going to publish yet. First of all, they have to accept that you've put a chapter in. So if you've got too much white space at the end, they'll say, no, they're not going to accept that you have too much white space at the end. And they tell you why. You
Oh,
have,
okay. Well, that's
I,
helpful.
I think it's like 2 to 5 seconds you're supposed to have of white space of white noise at the end. And and so then they will tell you why. Then you can go and change that and upload it again. And then if they accept it, if they'll bring it into their system, it's not your final check. You have to once you do the whole book and they've accepted each chapter that you've put in, once done the whole thing, and then you say, okay, I'm ready, submit the book. Then it goes through a 10-day approval. It takes about 10 days before you hear back from
Yeah.
them and they will let you know if it's approved. And if it's not approved, they'll tell you why. And they're just real nice about it. They like one of the emails, one of the notices said, "But don't worry, we'll tell you what you need to do different." So that was helpful.
Well, I hope that for those who are watching that really feel like this is something they need to do, that we are helping to take the fear and the anxiety level down, and just help you feel empowered and confident that you can do this. And of course, the other thing is that I know we touched on it, but not really. The costs of having a book narrated for you versus doing it yourself are significantly different. What would you say was your total budget to record your book versus what you might have spent if you'd hired someone to do it for you?
I would estimate maybe $400 in what I spent, not counting my time
Oh,
to record
yeah.
it and to edit it, not counting that, but about
Mhm.
$400 spend. And I would think maybe if I had narrated it and had someone else edit it, I think it probably would have been around 700, $800. And if I had had someone narrate and edit it, I would say maybe 3,000. I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but
Easy,
something like that.
easily,
Yeah,
easily.
depending on the word count. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to I hope that's not too personal a question, but I think that it speaks to the audience who's trying to decide. Of course, I think the main reason should just be because no one can read your story like you, in the fact that I really am addressing nonfiction authors primarily. But definitely there's a huge difference. And part of that $400, of course, was the training course that you took. So in essence, you got so much knowledge that you can continue to do this. If you write another book, you wouldn't have to invest that again. So, in other words, now that you have the knowledge and you have the equipment, you would be able to continue to record at no additional cost. Whereas if you always hire someone, then it's thousands of dollars,
Right.
easily.
And and if it's something that you really enjoy and you learn how to edit it and narrate it too, but either narrate or edit or both, you can do it as a business. You can
Mm.
say, I will narrate this book for you, or narrate your book, send it to me, and I will edit it for you. It's a skill that is going to benefit you in your life.
I am so glad you brought that up. I think that's really important because I know for myself, when I started this YouTube channel, I hired a video editor because I didn't know anything, and that that's where I was at. And then about 6 months in, I just decided that I needed to learn this, and, because you just reach different levels. Anyway, I love video editing, and I feel like no one can edit my show like me because I know where the impact is, I know where I wanna be able to add images and how I want them to move and at what point I want the sound to come on or off. There's just little details that personalize the show, and I think the same is true with when you are editing your own story. You really are controlling how the content is delivered, even in the editing phase. But then also to just discover a new talent that I really enjoy video editing, and I could see myself doing it for other people now. I don't know if I'll do much of it because I don't have time, but I think to be able to have an additional skill set that you might offer others or that could bring in additional income is a really big reason why someone should narrate their own book, because you may just discover you love it and will want to continue to do that, and you'll be glad that you did.
Definitely. It could become your passion.
Yeah, I think that's such an excellent point, and especially as a storyteller, you're obviously a storyteller when you're writing books like that, so it's just another form of storytelling and
Yes.
creativity, so I
Yes.
enjoy it. I definitely need to record my own books, and learn that skill. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and as we close, I wanna ask you, where can someone learn more about you or about your books? Could they reach out to you?
Yes, I do have a blog. My name, amyhagerup.com/author. That's my author page. You can go there and download a free version, a free copy of my preface and first chapter. I haven't done the audio yet as a freebie, but you can listen to that on Audible. You can listen to the first 5 minutes. So, yes, I'd love to connect with you there.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming back, and I will look forward to a continued friendship with you and watching your success.
Thank you so much, Melanie.
If you're a reader that enjoys nonfiction books and would like to help out new authors, go to my website, triumphpress.com, and you can sign up to be an ARC reader. ARC is an acronym for Advanced Reader Copy. And that means that you would get a copy of a book before it's released to read it and be prepared to leave them a review when it's published. If that sounds like something you'd like to do, be sure to go to my website and join my Triumph ARC Reader team. If you got something out of this show, please give it a thumbs up because it really helps us to reach more people. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel because I'd love to have you in my community.